Hi everyone, it's JG here with Earth 5D on location. Hi guys. So glad you're here today, guys. I wanted to talk today about being a leader and what that means. Mostly everyone that comes to me in this channel that finds me at Earth 5D is someone who is working at being a leader in the community, working at being a leader in their field, working at being a healer. And you know, I've noticed that not only being a leader, you have to walk the walk, right? Because if you don't walk the walk, then you have no grit to your teachings, right? You have no grit to your style of leadership. So you actually have to go through the stuff to come out the other side to be able to help others. So I've noticed that for me, on my journey, being a leader means being humble, and not just the fake kind of humility, but the kind where you really are compassionate for people and compassionate for their journey, and also being vulnerable. Because if you aren't vulnerable, it's very difficult to receive, right? And being receptive is a huge portion, a huge part of working with spirit. Because as much as I have my own insights and information that I acquire through my journey, mostly what I teach is just being an open channel, right? Just being an open channel from spirit. And so it requires being vulnerable, and that requires being trusting, and it requires humility, because it's not easy to receive sometimes, especially when you've been through a lot in your life, because you've learned how to be strong. But being a leader here on earth is quite the task, right? Some of you are learning that. So what will help you through that is learning how to be vulnerable to receive, learning how to be vulnerable to experience humility. And when you experience humility, you have a lot of compassion for people and realize that we're all in this together. And, you know, if you feel called to be a leader, if you recognize, you know, being a leader, no one's going to just say, hey, you're a leader. Being a leader is something you feel, and that's something you start to do. And then it just starts to kind of cascade from there. People need you, and they need your advice, and they need your help. How are you called to lead? How are you called to lead? Also, being a leader requires setting boundaries and teaching people how to treat you. I had something happen here this morning at the hotel, and there's been a couple times in the public that I've really and stood my ground in a couple situations. And this morning, there was a lady, we'd gone down for breakfast. We were gonna have breakfast before we went out to relax by the pool, and she was really rude to me. Her tone was extremely rude, and my daughter didn't have shoes on, and we're at a beach hotel, and she was very rude, and I ignored her rudeness because she said, you can't be barefoot here, but her tone was just very disrespectful, so I ignored it. And then she said it again, even worse, you know, even more aggressive. And I just looked at her and I said something like, that's inappropriate. Speak to us with respect. Something along those lines, or stop yelling. And she was so startled, because most people would just blindly listen and take that sort of negative behavior, but I wasn't going to accept it. So, and it taught my daughters too to like question people. And, you know, I kind of like pushed back my authority on her, like, you speak to me with respect, you speak to my daughters with respect, right? And so being a leader also requires setting boundaries and teaching people how to treat you well, how to treat you the way you want to be treated, because they're not going to magically know. A lot of people just want to push their agenda. That requires you standing up and for yourself and others sometimes, and not just being a wallflower. You got to practice what you preach. You got to practice your own authority, right? So guys, those are the thoughts for today, is to remember to set boundaries for, when people are sort of giving you bad behavior, set boundaries and teach them how to treat you. Make sure that you are leading with humility and understanding that everyone is experiencing the same human experience. Everyone is dealing with it differently, right? Because we all had different upbringings. But I believe that what really does happen as you grow is like the more you know, the less you know. And you begin to truly just want to meet people with compassion. And in that, you're able to be humble and to receive not only from spirit, but from others. Because no man or woman or child is an island. So we have to deal with each other. We have to work through our humanity and our divinity equally. Because we are equally divine and equally human. All right, guys. So much love and light. Have a beautiful, beautiful day, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.